Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And my name is Muhammad Ashraf Shami bin Adam Shukri. And today we will talk about the art of Sherlock Holmes and how it reflects the culture of British. So, our team consists of me, myself, Muhammad Ashraf Shami bin Adam Shukri, my friend Hazid Danish bin Hafizul, Muhammad Izzat Hakimi bin Razali, and last, Muhammad Akid Zairi bin Zamzuri. So, today we are going to examine the visual arts of British through Sherlock Holmes' story. Second, we will analyze the literature of Sherlock Holmes. Third, we will identify British identity through Sherlock Holmes music. And last but not least, perform a short scene which Sherlock Holmes tried to capture a criminal in a very intelligent way. Okay, I think we should know about Sherlock Holmes first. Like, who is Sherlock Holmes? So, Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character created by Scottish author Arthur Conan Doyle. So, he first appeared in Conan Doyle's A Study in Scarlet novel, and the first collection of the Holmes tales, published as The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, appeared in 1892. So, his job is he pursues criminals through Victorian and Edwardian London as the world consulting detective. So, mostly people say he is inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, see Auguste Dupin, a character. And somehow, Sherlock Holmes made a huge impact and has been the most enduring character of the detective story. So, before we're moving on, there's a trailer that I want to show you. So, enjoy!
Come, Watson. Come. The game is afoot.
There isn't any time to waste then, is there?
Afghanistan or Iraq? Which was it, Afghanistan or Iraq?
You could identify a software designer by his tie and an airline pilot by his left thumb.
Yes.
The grave. I want you to find him and stop him.
That'll take every ounce of my not inconsiderable experience.
This may be a hobby to you, Mr. Holmes, but I do it for a living.
It does make a considerable difference to me, having someone with me on whom I can thoroughly rely.
What's there to see, Watson?
No, sir. Gentlemen, only a ruffian deals a blow with the back of the hand. The gentleman uses the straight left. And I said I'm a gentleman.
I saw you on Matterside. Marks on and around the door show that it was forced open. And recently, there were signs of a scuffle with boot marks from 3 separate intruders, one of them heavy set. Judging by the height and extent of the subsequent damage, traces of fabric and spots of blood suggest that there was another occupant, likely female, who seems to have fought back, using a sharp and improvised weapon before escaping through the window. I'd say this was a targeted search and interrogation in which 2 women were discovered. And then my sister arrived. And you were curiously fast to arrive after her. Now, are you going to release her, or shall I?
So, how's that trailer just now? It's pretty interesting, right? It's an introduction to our character of Sherlock Holmes, like how he evolved throughout the years, that. So, we're gonna see the visual arts of Sherlock Holmes. First, let's see about the illustration of Sherlock Holmes. So, a well-known illustrator of Sherlock Holmes is Sidney Paget. He illustrated the life of Sherlock Holmes and he already created more than 350 drawings for Sherlock Holmes story. And he is the one that established the iconic image of the great detective, such as the newstalker hat that is very iconic, and smoking pipe, that is calabash pipe, that Sherlock Holmes always used. But unfortunately, most of it are lost and gone, so only 30 are known to exist. So, this is a more illustration of Sherlock Holmes drawn by Sidney Paget. Next, we're moving on to adaptations of Sherlock Holmes. The Sherlock Holmes adaptation starts from a stage play. The 1899 play Sherlock Holmes by Conan Doyle and William Gillett was a synthesis of several Conan Doyle stories. And the stage play is very significant because it introduced his calabash pipe, his smoking pipe that is very iconic to him. So the play also formed the basis for Gillett 1916 film Sherlock Holmes. So the actor Gillett performed as Holmes almost 1,300 times, and in the early 1900, H.A. Sainsbury took over the role for Gillett for a tour of the play. So, between this play and Conan Doyle's onstage adaptation of The Adventure of the Speckled Man, Sainsbury portrayed Holmes over 1,000 times. Huh. Of course, Sherlock Holmes will get his on-screen adaptation. Well, Holmes' first screen appearance was in the 1900 Mutterscope film Sherlock Holmes Baffled. Well, the first actor to portray him is Ellie Norwood in 47 silent films of Sherlock Holmes from 1921 to 1923. So, 1009 to 29, The Return of Sherlock Holmes was the first sound title to feature Holmes. So the actor Basil Rathbone played Sherlock Holmes from 1939 to 1946. So Basil Rathbone has already played him in 40 US movies, which two of them belongs to 20th Century Fox and the rest of them belongs to Universal Pictures, the studio that made movies. While while the Fox films were period piece, the Universal films abandoned the Victorian Britain and they moved to a then contemporary setting in which Holmes occasionally battled Nazis. Now, we are at modern adaptations of Sherlock Holmes. So, surprise, surprise, Sherlock Holmes has been portrayed the most in film and television history, with more than 75 actors playing the part in 250 productions. So, in television, Benedict Cumberbatch, which you may know from Doctor Strange or The Grinch, take on Sherlock Holmes' role in BBC Sherlock series, which premiered in 2010 to 2017. So the acclaimed series created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss received huge praise and love by the critics and fans alike for its brilliant plot and engaging performance. Robert Downey Jr., maybe you know him from Iron Man or Tropic Thunder, also played a role in the 2009 film Sherlock Holmes with Jude Law as Watson. They also returned for the 2011 sequel film Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. Well, Sherlock Holmes adaptation would not be complete without video games, am I right? Sherlock Holmes has been a beloved literature and cultural figure for over a century, and his legacy has extended to the world of video games. From PC to mobile platforms, numerous Sherlock Holmes games offer players the opportunity to step into the shoes of the astute consulting detective himself. For example, we can see Sherlock Holmes video game series, which is produced by Frogwares. So, for example, those games include The Mystery of the Mummy and The Case of the Silver Earring, which they took from original story. Sherlock Holmes made many appearances in another video game franchise such as The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Fun fact, that's my favorite video game too, and also inspired characters such as Professor Layton. So, the question is, how does Sherlock Holmes' art reflect the culture of British? First, we have to see that Sherlock Holmes represents the archetype of British intellectualism. His reliance on logic, reason, and the scientific method reflects the spirit of rationality that was central to British culture in the late 19th century. During the Industrial Revolution, Britain was at the forefront of scientific and technological advancement, and Holmes embodies this faith in empirical evidence and deduction. Victoria London itself plays a vital role in the story. The dense fog, crowded streets, and gaslit alleys of the city are symbolic of both the dangers and the possibilities of modern urban life. Well, Holmes' detached, aloof, and cerebral manner is quintessentially British, embodying Victorian ideals of stoicism, emotional restraint, and politeness. Watson's narrative style, with its gentlemanly reserve and respectability, also mirrors Victorian social expectations. Last but not least, Holmes' focus on solving crimes and assisting Scotland Yard highlights the importance of law, justice and order in British society. His relationship with figures like Inspector Lestrade reflects Britain's reliance on a professionalized police force and a legal system that values evidence and rational investigation.
Literature of Sherlock Holmes. Significance. Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, is one of the most iconic characters in British literature. The detective stories, set in Victorian and Edwardian London, explore themes of logic, justice, and the changing nature of society during the industrialization. Sherlock Holmes Cannon's series of novels, a study in Scarlet during 1987 and then followed by The Sign of the Four 1890s, then The Hound of the Baskervilles 1901 until 1902, and then lastly The Valley of Fear during 1914 until 1915. Analysis: Short story like The Adventure of the Speckled Band or A Scandal in Bohemia focus on how the character of Sherlock Holmes reflect the British values such as rationality, order, and the importance of observation. Readers could also discuss how the stories provide a window into Victorian social structures, technology, and law enforcement. Cultural influence: Holmes has been adapted into countless films, TV shows, and plays, making him a lasting symbol of British culture worldwide. Readers can explore how this literary figure influenced both British and global detective fiction.
Sherlock Holmes is set in Victorian-era Britain, and though music itself is not the primary focus of the stories, Holmes has a personal connection to music, which reflects key aspects of the British culture at the time. We're gonna explore three things: traditional music styles, instruments, and significance. Traditional music styles. In the Victorian era, mid-19th to early 20th century, several types of music were prominent. The first one is classical music. This was the era of Romantic and classical music composers like Felix Mendelssohn, Johannes Brahms, and Richard Wagner. Opera was also very popular in London at the time. The second one is folk music. Traditional British folk songs were also part of everyday life, though they were less commonly associated with urban settings like North London. The third one is parlour music, a popular genre during this time. Parlour music consisted of songs performed in domestic settings, often on the piano or by small ensembles. This would have been music enjoyed by middle-class households. Last one is military and brass band music. Britain had a strong military tradition, and music played by military bands was common at public events. This form of music was a symbol of national pride and military prowess. Now going on to instruments. Holmes himself plays the violin, which is a significant detail reflecting both his personal complexity and Victorian cultural values. The violin was an instrument often associated with sophistication and intelligence. The violin. Holmes frequently plays the violin to relax or think through complex cases. The violin was also symbolic of high culture and intellect in Victorian England, reinforcing Holmes as a refined and cerebral figure. Secondly, a piano. The piano was another popular instrument during the Victorian era. It featured in many middle and upper class households as a symbol of status and education. Lastly, brass instruments. Reflecting military tradition, Instruments such as trumpets, trombones, and tubas were often used in formal ceremonies and public displays of power, connecting British patriotism and with music. Significance: music plays an indirect role in several Holmes stories, often contributing to the atmosphere Holmes' own character development. In The Adventure of the Red-Headed League, Holmes displays his musical talents by playing a violin concerto by Mendelssohn. This scene shows his deep appreciation for music, and it adds to his enigmatic personality. Music is also crucial in The Adventure of the Mazarine Stone, where Holmes uses his violin playing to distract a suspect. The use of the violin reflects Holmes' tendency to use creative and abstract thinking to solve problems, suggesting a connection between music and logic. In terms of cultural significance, refinement and class. Music, particularly classical music, was considered a marker of education and refinement in British society. Holmes, as a violinist, represents this cultural value. Emotional expression. Although Holmes is often depicted as a highly rational, his relationship with the violin reflects his emotional depth, which was often concealed in Victorian society. Lastly, symbol of intellect and problem solving. The violin, as played by Holmes, becomes a symbol of intellect and logical deduction, as music was taught to engage the mind similarly to solving puzzles.
Now let's talk about dance in Sherlock Holmes. While dance is not a central theme, there are a few notable moments and references where it plays a part, often reflecting the cultural and social dynamics of the time. Dance in these stories tends to appear more as a symbol of Victorian and Edwardian society than as an action or focus in the plot itself. Victorian society and dance. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when Sherlock Holmes was written, dance was a popular social activity, especially among the upper and middle classes. Balls and dances were integral to courtship and socialization. For characters in Sherlock Holmes, participating in a dance or attending a ball would be indicative of their social status, relationships, and the customs of the time. Dance could serve as a setting that highlights the distinct class divisions present in Victorian and Edwardian England. The types of dances and venues characters frequent or are excluded from may subtly reflect their social position. Next, symbolism in dance. Dance in literature often symbolizes life, order, and relationships. In Holmes' work, it sometimes represents the predictability and regularity of society, a stark contrast to the chaos Holmes seeks to understand and solve. Holmes, as a character, is not depicted as a participant in social dance events, underscoring his detachment from the societal norms and conventions and his singular focus on logic and deduction. Moving on, we have The Adventure of the Dancing Man. This story is perhaps the most famous in the Sherlock Holmes canon, where the theme of dance plays a direct role. Here, the dancing man refers to a cipher or code with little stick figure men in dancing positions being a secret form of communication. While the dancing men aren't literally dancing, the code's connection to dance like figures draws on the idea of rhythm, movement, and pattern, all of which parallel Holmes' methodical approach to solving mysteries. The use of the dancing man cipher also reflects the fascination with secret societies, cryptography, and codes during the late Victorian period, a time when new forms of communication and encryption were becoming more widespread due to advances in technology and espionage. Next up, Dance as a symbol of social order and disguise. So, dance is often used in literature to explore themes of disguise or duality. Although not a direct theme in Sherlock Holmes, certain social occasions involving dance allow characters to adopt different personas, which aligns with the series' broader themes of identity, disguise, and deception. Last but not least, Sherlock Holmes' disinterest in dance. Holmes himself is actually portrayed as being uninterested in the frivolities of social life, including dance. His aloofness towards such activities marks him as someone outside the bounds of ordinary society. His focus on intellectual pursuits and problem solving creates a contrast with the vibrant social world of balls and dances, underlining his uniqueness as a detective and his separation from conventional social expectations.
Holmes. We have interviewed everyone. Mr. Finch here says that he was asleep in his study. There's nothing to tie him into but his death.
I'm a victim too, Inspector. Someone broke into my estate and killed my closest friend, Button.
Holmes, you haven't said a word since we arrived. Surely you've observed something.
Observe? Well, yes, Watson, I observed quite a little bit. You know, Watson, the problem lies not in observation, but in interpretation.
I don't know what you are implying, Mr. Holmes. My business partner is dead and my home has been ransacked.
And yet the room where Mr. Barton was found dead, your study room, showed no sign of forced entry, literally no struggle at all. So you're telling me that there is someone break into your house?
That's true. The rest of the house was a mess. But your study was perfectly in order, save for Barton's body.
Well, perhaps the burglar didn't make it before Button started him.
Or perhaps Mr. Finch, the burglary was staged.
Well, Mr. Holmes, what are you suggesting?
And I'm suggesting that the burglary was covered for something else entirely. You see, Mr. Barton, that was not premeditated. It was something else. Someone else want him dead. And that someone is you, Mr. Finch.
That was preposterous. Why would I kill my own business partner? What motive could I possibly have?
Oh, grieve, Mr. Finch. Barton was about to expose your embezzlement. You've been siphoning money from your joint accounts for months now, haven't you?
How dare you!
Oh, come on. It's all in the accounts, which I had a limited reviewing, by the way. Barton discovered your discrepancies and confronted you about it, didn't he? But you killed him.
This is absurd. You can't prove any of this.
Oh, really? Now let's start in the first part, shall we? You killed Mr. Barton while he was sick behind his back.
So he was caught guard?
Indeed, Watson. He trusts his attacker, so he will have reason for be defensive. But that means the burglar was not a random man. He knew the murderer.
And that points to Finch.
That proves nothing. I told you I was asleep in the study.
Yes, The thing is, Mr. Finch, you were not asleep when you were in the Barton's room, right? You were actually there, waiting for the right moment to strike him. So, you staged the burglary and you murdered him.
Just making this up.
Let me explain why your plan failed, Mr. Fish. You see, the burglar ran that house quite thoroughly. Too thoroughly. In fact, you see, the jewelry, the shovelware, nothing was stolen. So you're saying that someone ransacked his house and Mr. Barton was killed.
Indeed. No one would leave valuables like that.
Exactly, that's right. But the fatal clue, the real clue all along, was in Barton's pocket. Watson, do you remember what we found there?
The note?
Precisely. A note from Barton to Fish just before we came here. It read, "The accounts don't add up. Let's end this now."
That means nothing. He was mistaken about the account.
Mistaken? Perhaps. But not about your guilt though. You glanced me to silence him for good. But you overlooked one final detail.
What details?
See, Mr. Fish, you used fireplace poker, something that Mr. Burglar would not ever use. And it bears your fingerprints, I checked it earlier. You didn't even bother to clean it.
That's it then. We're done for, Finch.
I didn't mean to. I told him I needed time. He threatened to expose everything.
Finch, it is not your fault. But you turned a simple confrontation into murder.
Well, you have plenty of time to think that things settle.
Incredible, Holmes. You unravel it all from a few small clues.
Mr. Watson, the smallest clues often reveal the greatest truth after all. The greed, the lies, the burglary stage was way too perfect.
And the notes?
Oh, the notes here that Barton came fit to confront Mr. Finch and he saw no other way out.
Yet another mind brought down by greed.
Greed, lies meant to their consequences of actions. But as always, justice seek as always. See clear, through it clearly. Oh, come on, Mr. Watson, let's go.